I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. On we'll go. Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. On we'll go.
Okay, there we go. I don't know why it's doing that lately. So, anyway, it's just not picking up my headphones lately. All right. So, chapter 4 of the Cloven Tree. This one's a short one, but the next one's a long one, so I'm only going to read the short one tonight. Chapter 4. Oh, I should put on my spectacles. All right, well, let's just jump straight on into it. All right, Chapter 4, The Vision. Slowly, compared to the nearly forced march that they had used that morning, the party headed north, trying to use the remaining daylight hours to reach as far up the trail as possible, maybe even to reach Five Tree before darkness fell. It was quite a haul for the Fenlanders. Over 150 reptile hides, not counting the big worm, bones, teeth, gallbladders, livers, stomach linings, several different venom glands, a few other items from the small reptiles, and all of the harvested organs and hide from the half-dragon. Nor did that include what the other group of Fenlanders had taken earlier. Of course, they could not make it all the way out of the fens with the daylight they had. Gart had anticipated this. The party that had left earlier had prepared a camp half a mile north of where Owen had broken the croc's jaw, on a small hill. Finally, the prince felt it time to voice a question or two. Why did you save as much of that beast's stomach fluid and blood? They are most certainly dangerous. That's why we want 'em, Arster said. They might help in tanning the hides, and if we can't use them for that, well, the handful of dwarves at the new mine will probably use them to separate ore. The lungs and stomachs are tough. We use them as bladders of some kind, and we'll find uses for the others. And the venom sacs? You were with the chief 2 days ago? Then you saw how we use venom. Venom that's that powerful ought to kill fen trolls pretty quick. Maybe we can use it against other fen worms, and of course, the mages and alchemists will want to study it. Rest up, Highness. Tomorrow will be quite a bit of work, Arster promised, with a knowing smile on his face. He did not lie. Carrying all of their harvested goods and all the equipment out of the fens was a massive, time-consuming undertaking. The creatures of the fens seemed to have vanished, but the Fenlanders were cautious, and between breaking the night's fast and then breaking camp, they were not able to leave until well after first light. Arster explained to his guests. Takes a while for the light to make travel safe, this deep in the swamps. Trails aren't permanent here. By noon, they had reached Five Tree, and they ate a pre-cooked meal, pausing for less than an hour. Then they picked up their gear and slogged back up the original Higgins Trail, which was slightly easier to travel upon than its southern extension. Heavily burdened that they were, it was still 5 more hours until Billy's camp, where another 100 Fenlanders waited to help, this time without all the camp gear that the first group had required. The extra help and the heavily traveled section. Heavily traveled section of the trail back to town made things easier. It was early in the evening when they returned, to find everyone making ready for feast and festival. As the Fenlanders began stowing their equipment and harvest, the prince headed to the town hall. Highness, Master Bruin called, coming out to meet them. I have excellent news. The hides that the Fenlanders have been storing are, for the most part, of the highest quality, and in the main in excellent shape. I could use nearly any of these hides to make armor, and the few that I could not would be excellent for other applications. I have never heard of such a treasure as this. The prince did a double take when Bruin said the word treasure. Dwarves have a slightly different definition of the word than men, and the prince knew that the dwarf had picked that word deliberately. Not questioning his assessment, he was a dwarven armorer. The prince asked, "How much would you say it is worth?" Highness, the total value of these hide caches is over 10 million silvers, dwarven silvers. Stunned, the prince had an idle thought. No wonder they feel like celebrating. So did he when the shock wore off. After 10 days of practically continuous feast, Owen McOwen did not think he would ever be hungry again. Okay, apparently we've jumped forward 10 days. I didn't know that there was so much food in the world, let alone here. Of course, they would have to restock much of what had been consumed, but the price the prince had given, along with the promised aid, should help more than a little. Over 7 million silvers for most of our stored hides. Not all of them, just most. The village council had still managed to think of the future and had kept back a number of hides for the merchants to buy the next time they came. They had also included other items in the bargaining: coal, iron, salt, tools, and glass. The column of soldiers had been virtually stripped of every piece of glassware and scrap iron, so much that the farriers despaired of ever being able to make another horseshoe. They and the armorers lost half their stores. Fentown now had an immediate supply of rare supplies and finished tools. The soldiers of the High King received something far scarcer: worm hides, which, when properly utilized, made armor that would take a dragon to destroy or badly damage. All they'll use it for is armor. They must really need it, Owen noted to himself, an idle thought as Arster came to him. Owen, I'd like to ask you to do something for me, he said. What would that be, Mr. Arster? Owen responded cautiously. His manner was defensive, and Arster paused for a moment. Do you know why your dad and I don't get along? We were best friends once, he stated to Owen's surprise, and continued before Owen could interrupt. Best friends and brothers in arms, and we both wanted the same girl. Mom? Yep, your birthing mother, his first wife. I hated your dad for years after that. Still do a little, but he's a good man, and he's worried about you going with him. Please stay here, Owen. Let your dad have his last war raid. I don't really want to go, Mr. Arster. When I said that, I was angry about being called boy, especially since Guard is now Mr. Garrison, and only 7 years older than me, and Joe is Mr. Ligon, and 2 years younger. I've cooled down, though, and I don't want to steal my dad's thunder. This is where I'm good at what I do. I'll stay at home. Owen meant every word of it. Arster nodded and walked off. The soldiers were playing another jig, and Owen went to see if Mora wanted to dance. The rest of the evening passed, and Owen was happy with his decision. Arster was glad that he had approached Owen. Neither of them could have planned for the vision that Owen had that night in his dreams. Okay. I guess it jumps again. Young Owen, I thought you had changed your mind, Andoran said the next morning, seeing Owen wearing full kit as he came into the town hall. I had, but then something... Owen, it's good to see you here, the prince said, entering the hall. I thought that you had changed your mind. I had, but then something... Owen, you're in full kit. But that will not be necessary. We will not be leaving until tomorrow. Had you not decided to stay? Taurus asked. I had, but then something... Owen, McOwen, what in all the hells are you doing? His father interrupted him, unaware of the fuse he had just lit. Owen exploded. Bellicose, each of you asked me the same thing and interrupted me at the same place. Worm dung. Okay. A group of expletives followed that impressed the Master Dragoneer Andoran, and made Oxbow turn white, that his baby should know such language. Taurus grabbed him by the shoulder to stave off his inevitable berating of the younger McOwen. I would hear what changed his mind. The older Owen assented, and the younger spoke. I had a vision in my dreams, a vision of the Kilia. We spoke of that region days ago, Andoran pointed out. Owen nodded and continued. In this dream I saw a mountain and a castle, the names of Glareth and Gant. Your father and I have mentioned them, Owen, Taurus stated, not noting the irritated look that Owen gave him until he had finished. Sorry, my friend, please continue. The dream also had a mighty tree in it. Drakes, orcs, a Hlemiok, or perhaps more than one circled the tree, along with soldiers who were slaves. The word bondsman came to me in my dream. What does that mean? Here Owen shrugged, and the experienced warriors traded looks. Legionnaires, they all thought, but none of them answered Owen's question. In their shock at that being in the dream, they did not hear it, and Owen did not repeat it, thinking it was unimportant. Did your dream reveal to you anything else, Owen? Andoran asked quietly. Bards, Owen said, slightly depressed. These bards were wizards. They could sing so well that stones would cry, and deserts cheer. There are hundreds, thousands of them once. There are hundreds, thousands of them once, maybe. The dream wasn't very clear. One of the last of them hid this book. The dream focused on that and on the tree. Andoran looked at Owen for a moment, then he began to speak to Taurus and Oxbow. The plan is this. A mission of dwarves, elves, and men, including mages, approximately 40 strong, will enter the Kilia here, he said, referring to an until then ignored map. They will be disguised as a scout platoon of the 10th Grand Regiment, which will be conducting patrols west of the Kilia. One of its regiment will skirt the Kilia, ostensibly looking for new orc holds. The mission will then deploy among that thousands scouts. Standard doctrine. They will not, however, return to the column, but will in fact proceed to one of these points. He again touched the map, this time in 3 places. That's the directest approach to Kirian, Kiriean. We'll call it the Korean Vale and Kroger. Are we going after that son of an egg layer? Oxbow said. No, Andoran replied, but if they are caught, that is what they will say. They being the decoys, those left behind to watch the mounts. The actual goals of the mission are here and here, touching the map in 2 separate places, roughly the same distance apart in different directions. The mission squad will consist of 2 teams and a reserve. Glancing at Owen, Taurus said, "You want me to infiltrate a lair?" That is impossible. That is almost impossible to do from above ground. Oxbow also glanced at his son. "And you want the rest of us to go to Killia Castle? That's 3 days overland at least. Not a chance that both groups will be able to avoid patrols. Wouldn't this be a better mission for 1 or 2 man teams? Maybe elven teams?" But Taurus was shaking his head. A lone elf might be able to get into the castle, but he'd have a devil of a time staying hidden. Trolls, if they have mountain trolls, would smell an elf the way you and I smell fresh bread, and no full elf can infiltrate a dragon's lair. He did not elaborate, and Andoran nodded. Exactly. A mixed party has the best chance of succeeding. Elves for experience, dwarves for compact battle might, and men for both. 40 is a very large number for a mission squad, Taurus pointed out. We currently have no accurate intelligence upon the internal layout of the fortress. No patrol has seen the castle in 6 years. 3 escaped slaves have given us our only intelligence of the castle in the last 5 years. Seeing both Oxbow and Taurus bristle at that, he said, "The last one was a dwarf. His report on the interior of the fort was very detailed, and it confirmed what the other 2 had said, but the report is over a year old." "A year and a half," the prince specified. "So instead of a squad, you are sending in a platoon?" Taurus said. "That means you are expecting casualties." Yeah, we're 3 pages from done already. Grimly, Andoran concurred. "Yes, the castle seems to have at least 5 sorcerers, led by one called Brask." Oxbow hissed. "Gant's footleech? That bootlicker's a chief sorcerer now?" Andoran nodded. "Apparently he has stepped out of Gant's shadow. The slaves said that he had 4 or 5 apprentices." "And Krolth will not be the patriarch of the Dragon's Lair," Taurus noted, and Andoran concurred. "Why go to the castle if we have to go to the lair? Why go to the lair if we have to go to the castle?" The vision was unclear. It pointed to both the lair and castle, hinting that we need to search both. "No wonder that you wanted a dragoneer. A retired dragoneer, since entering a dragon's lair, with very few exceptions, is a violation of our laws big enough to force a dragoneer to go into a retirement." "Ah, but have a dragoneer who has already been retired in disgrace do it. He has nothing to lose. Brilliant." The Makoans had never heard Taurus speak like that before, and were silent. The prince had nothing to say, but Andoran did not let that go unchallenged. "You could have claimed outrage against Glareth Thornlek," he said, almost reasonably, "and never have hunted even a snake again. You know that," Taurus responded. 12 lords were ready to declare him outlawed. 2 dragon chiefs were making inquiries about doing the same, but you had your pride, and when you took longer to kill him than the warrant statute permitted, you acted like such a martyr, as if turning yourself in were a heroic act. Only because of what had happened were we so merciful. You should be glad we thought of you when this mission came." Taurus had turned livid, but that last statement made him laugh uproariously. "That is idiocy, and you know it. How many other Master Dragoneers do you have out there that have been retired in disgrace? Hells, how many Master Dragoneers have ever been retired in disgrace? You need a Master Dragoneer to have a chance at entering the lair and leaving it alive. Do not insult my intelligence by saying I should be grateful." Before Andoran could reply, Oxbow slammed his fist on the table. "I don't know what's putting termites in your tunics, but if you're going to argue like that all the way to the Killian Mountains, you can do it without any Macoans, let alone 2. I lost too many of my friends in them overgrowed hills to want anything to do with fellas who can't put their differences aside when they have to. Now settle down or get out of my village. Fens are bad enough." The 2 Dragoneers looked at the old hunter for a moment, then they burst out laughing. "Pardon us, Master Oxbow," Andoran said. "You sound for all the world like one of our old instructors. I won't be with the mission at all. I'll stay with the Grand Regiment." Calming down, Taurus said, "I still do not like having to approach the mission overland." "You will not. The decoys will wait with the horses next to one of the old entrances to the tunnels that you used so brilliantly 30-some years ago." "I was afraid of that," Oxbow interjected, and Andoran continued. "The mission captain will break it down further, but you will use the tunnels to enter both targets. If this entrance to the tunnels cannot be used, the mission will have 2 others to try, ones the warlords never found. You will inspect each site for the object, and you will then return to the decoy point and will ride out of the Killia. If that cannot happen, you will use the tunnels to come to the mines where you used to be a slave, Oxbow. Don't worry, they are free still, and a company of dwarves is already in position there if you need to use that route. The mission captain will break down the platoon and set up each actual strike team. Oxbow, he will want your expertise to make more contingency plans. For now, that is the current outline of the mission." "How many wizards will we be taking with us? If we are going up against sorcerers, it ain't a bad idea to have wizards round. Especially since we're expecting casualties. I believe there will be a minimum of 10 upon the mission. We cannot compromise the whole mission of mages, but there will be more than half a squad of them. I will not be able to take mages into the dragon's lair, but you said that there would be dwarves. Dwarves are always useful underground and are good in a fight, particularly a close quarters fight." "How many are going?" Taurus asked. 10 at least. It's a risk to the scout platoon cover, but the cover quite likely will be lost eventually anyway." "It is not much of a risk, Highness," Taurus disagreed. "If you wanted a small patrol in strength, dwarves would definitely be involved. I have heard of such patrols before." "Is the mission so important that so many lives must be risked?" Owen asked. The others started. They had forgotten about his presence. "Yes, it is," the prince stated. "What object's so important?" "Now, you don't need to be asking that, Owen," Oxbow said, "'cause you're staying here." "No, he is not," Andoran said. Other than the tree, his dream was exactly the same as that of the members of the council. "I can't let him stay here. The mission is to retrieve and deprive the enemy of a book of sages, the records and hopefully the weirds of the Glee sages, the greatest magi, the last true one of whom died. How long ago, Highness?" "Nearly 60,000 years, the prince said. "But," the older Macoan objected, and Doran cut him off. "He saw the vision, he knows the mission. The enemy might seek him out, even here, because of that." "But," he began, and Andoran interrupted him again. "I'm sorry, Oxbow. For the sake of the mission, for the sake of everyone here, he cannot stay behind." And that's the end of that chapter. Quick, short, Not his best chapter so far. Feels a little bit of, forcing the issue. But, it is what it is. It's not my book. I didn't write it. It works for him. So, anyway, that'll be it. I am not rating anybody tonight. I am just going to call it there. So, I will see you all tomorrow night.
Don't like the lights, but it's camera time. Said take a picture, but you rolled your eyes. Now I'm mortified, and still terrorized. Push me behind to get my better side. I wanna push you back, but that's all you want.